There are moments in life when every path seems blocked, when we knock upon doors that remain stubbornly shut, and when even our most earnest efforts seem met with silence. In such times, despair whispers that perhaps the journey ends here, that our striving has been in vain. What if I told you that beyond the reach of our present vision, a door is already opening? A door we never considered, one whose threshold leads not to what we expected, but to what we were truly meant for. The human mind is a small and wonderful thing, but it is small nonetheless. We plan, we predict, we strategize, and yet we often mistake the walls before us as the end of the road. We forget that there is a higher wisdom, a guiding hand that sees beyond the narrow corridors of our understanding. If we measure the course of our lives by our own expectations, we will always feel disappointment. Yet, consider this: what if the delays, the denials, the disappointments were not barriers, but preparations? What if God, in His infinite wisdom, closes certain doors, not to punish us, but to redirect us towards something far greater? Faith, then, is not merely a passive trust that doors will open. It is the courage to keep moving, even when we do not yet see them. It is the conviction that beyond the veil of our present struggles, the hand of God is already turning the key to a door we had not imagined. But here lies the question: when that door appears, will we recognize it? Or will we, bound by our own preconceptions, hesitate at the threshold? Too often, we long for the familiar, for the security of what we have known. Yet the call of faith is not a call to comfort, it is a call to step forward, to embrace the unknown, and to trust that the one who leads us does so with purpose. If you find yourself at a standstill, if every effort seems futile, do not despair. Stand firm in the knowledge that beyond what you see, beyond what you understand, God is at work. The door you expected may remain closed, but another one you never imagined will soon open. And when it does, may you have the courage to walk through it. The hidden hand of providence. There is an unseen force at work in the world, one that moves beyond the reach of human perception. This force, the divine hand of God, orchestrates events in ways that often seem inexplicable to us. We plan, we strive, we build our expectations upon what we know. Yet time and time again, life unfolds in ways that defy our prediction. Doors we assumed would open remain closed, while opportunities we never sought arise from the most unexpected places. To the untrained eye, this appears as mere coincidence, but to those who perceive with faith, it is clear that a higher wisdom is at work. Providence does not move in straight lines. It does not conform to the neat arrangements of human reasoning. Instead, it weaves through the fabric of existence in ways that often leave us bewildered. Consider the life of a man who pursues a singular dream with unrelenting determination, only to find that every effort is met with resistance. He tries again, knocks on door after door, only to face rejection after rejection. In his mind, failure looms over him, whispering that he is either unworthy or simply unfortunate. But what he does not see is that his struggle is not in vain. What he perceives as failure is, in reality, preparation. The closed doors we encounter are not necessarily punishments or signs of misdirection. They are often the work of a divine hand steering us towards something greater than we could have foreseen. A person denied entry into a path of his own choosing may later find himself ushered into one he never imagined, one that proves to be far richer, more fulfilling, and deeply aligned with his true purpose. The divine hand of providence does not always give us what we ask for, but it always gives us what we need. The difficulty lies in trust. Humans are creatures of sight, and we are often impatient for results. When a door remains closed longer than we think it should, we grow restless. We question the fairness of our circumstances, sometimes even the goodness of God. We long for immediate answers, for clear signs, yet God often works in the quiet, in the hidden, in the unfolding of. The farmer does not see the harvest in the moment he sows the seed, nor does the artist behold his masterpiece in the first stroke of his brush. There is always a process, one that requires both patience and faith. Throughout history, we see countless examples of this hidden guidance. A scholar denied entry to his preferred field later pioneers an entirely new discipline. An individual who loses everything finds a calling greater than he ever envisioned. A man abandoned by those he trusts is, in truth, being led toward those who will shape his destiny. The divine hand is never absent, though it often moves in ways that confound our expectations. This truth is both humbling and liberating. It is humbling because it reminds us that we are not the masters of our own fate, no matter how meticulously we plan. It is liberating because it assures us that our missteps and disappointments do not derail God's purpose for our lives. Even when we take the wrong path, even when we face setbacks of our own making, Providence is still at work, quietly realigning our steps toward the destiny set before us. To recognize the hidden hand of God requires a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing closed doors as failures, we must begin to see them as divine interventions. Instead of allowing disappointment to turn into despair, we must learn to trust that there is something greater at work, something beyond our current comprehension. The path of faith is not one of certainty, but of trust in the one who sees what we cannot. If we believe that God is good, then we must also believe that His guidance, even when it is hidden, is ultimately for our benefit. Even when He withholds something we desperately desire, He is not being cruel. He is being a father who knows what is best for his children. A child may cry for something dangerous, believing it to be harmless, but the loving parent withholds it, not out of malice, but out of wisdom. In the same way, the hidden hand of providence often shields us from what we think we need, only to give us something far better in due time. We may not always see the path clearly, but that does not mean we are lost. The closed doors, the unanswered prayers, the detours that seem meaningless, all of these are threads in a tapestry that is still being woven. When the time is right, we will look back and see that the divine hand was guiding us all along, opening doors we never could have imagined in ways beyond our understanding. The limits of human perception. Human understanding is bound by limitations. We see only what is before us, interpret events through the narrow lens of personal experience and make judgments based on incomplete knowledge. What seems like an ending may only be a pause, and what appears to be a failure may be the first step towards something greater. Yet, because we cannot see beyond the immediate moment, we often despair when things do not unfold according to our expectation. The mind seeks patterns, explanations, and predictability. It is uncomfortable with uncertainty. When we encounter a closed door, we assume rejection. When faced with delays, we assume denial. And when we lose something we cherished, we assume we have been forgotten. Rarely do we consider that our perception of the situation might be flawed, that there is a perspective beyond our own, one that sees the whole picture rather than a single fragment. A traveler lost in a dense forest may believe he is wandering aimlessly, but from above, an observer sees that he is moving steadily toward a clearing. The traveler's limited vision prevents him from understanding his progress. In the same way, we often misinterpret our circumstances, assuming that a lack of visible progress means stagnation. Yet, what if the movement we cannot see is still happening? What if the forces at work in our lives are not absent, but merely beyond the reach of our perception? The human mind is conditioned to view obstacles as barriers rather than as tools of refinement. When a door remains shut, we assume it is the final answer rather than a temporary redirection. We forget that many of history's greatest successes were preceded by long seasons of apparent failure. A writer whose manuscript is rejected a dozen times might assume he is not meant to write. A young professional passed over for promotion may conclude that his abilities are inadequate. A person who prays for guidance yet hears only silence may believe that God is distant. In each case, the perception is shaped by the immediate experience rather than by the larger reality at play. Time itself adds to the challenge. The human mind desires swift resolutions, clear signs, and immediate gratification. When an answer is delayed, frustration grows. Yet, what if time is not withholding something from us, but preparing us for it? What if the delay is not a denial, but a necessary process through which we are being made ready for what lies ahead? Just as a tree does not bear fruit in its first season, so too do we require time to mature before stepping into certain roles and opportunities. Consider the example of a sculptor chipping away at a block of stone. To the casual observer, the process may appear destructive. The sculptor removes large portions of the material, strikes repeatedly with his chisel, and seems to diminish the original form rather than enhance it. Yet, within the sculptor's mind, the vision is already complete. He does not see the formless rock, but the masterpiece within it. In the same way, our lives are often shaped through processes we do not fully understand. The setbacks, the disappointments, the unexpected turns, all of these may be the chisel strokes of a master craftsman, revealing a design beyond our comprehension. There is also the matter of perception shaped by fear. Fear constrains our ability to see beyond the immediate challenge. It magnifies problems, distorts reality, and convinces us that we are incapable of moving forward. A person standing before a locked door may assume he is trapped, yet if he only turned the handle, he might find it was never locked at all. Fear can blind us, to opportunities that are right before us, causing us to retreat when we should advance. What we perceive as obstacles may, in fact, be hidden invitations. A loss that seems unbearable may lead to a gain we never would have sought otherwise. A rejection that wounds us deeply may be sparing us from a path that was never meant for us. A delay that tests our patience may be ensuring that we arrive at the right moment rather than too soon. If our perception remains confined to what we can see, we will always struggle to understand the deeper workings of our lives. If we accept that our understanding is limited, then we must also accept that reality is not bound by our perception of it. A closed door may not be a dead end, but a necessary redirection. A period of silence may not indicate abandonment, but preparation. A loss may not be a punishment, but an unseen mercy. The question is not whether there is a larger plan at work, but whether we are willing to trust in it, even when we cannot see beyond our current moment. Faith over fear. Fear is one of the greatest hindrances to progress. It paralyzes, distorts reality, and creates barriers where none exist. When faced with uncertainty, the natural instinct is to retreat, to cling to what is familiar rather than step into the unknown. Faith, however, moves in the opposite direction. It calls us forward, beyond the limits of human reasoning, into places we cannot yet see but are destined to walk. Where fear says, "What if I fail?" Faith says, "What if this is the beginning of something greater?" The battle between faith and fear has existed since the beginning of time. When confronted with a challenge, fear magnifies the obstacles, making them appear insurmountable. A person standing before a closed door may hesitate, convinced that the way forward is impossible. Yet faith whispers that the door may not be locked at all, that with the right timing it may open to reveal a path greater than the one imagined. The choice between fear and faith is not merely an emotional response. It is a decision that shapes the course of one's life. Fear thrives in uncertainty. It feeds on doubt, on the unknown, on the discomfort of not having control. The human mind craves security, predictability, and assurance. When life presents situations that do not align with these desires, fear begins to whisper its deceptive messages. You are not capable. You will never succeed. You are alone in this. These voices, though persistent, are not truth. They are mere echoes of past disappointments, magnified by the mind's tendency to focus on worst-case scenarios. Faith operates differently. It does not demand full understanding, nor does it require complete certainty before taking a step. Instead, it moves forward despite the unknown, trusting that what lies ahead is guided by a higher hand. Faith is not reckless optimism or blind naivety. It is the conviction that beyond what is visible, something greater is at work. A person of faith does not need to see the entire path before taking the first step. He understands that clarity often comes in motion, not in stagnation. History is filled with examples of those who faced a choice between fear and faith. A man standing before an ocean with an army behind him could have surrendered to fear, but instead he stepped forward and the waters parted. A young shepherd facing a giant could have allowed fear to dictate his actions, but instead he moved forward with confidence, knowing that the battle was not his to fight alone. Again and again, the pattern is the same. Those who chose faith saw the impossible become reality, while those who yielded to fear remained trapped in hesitation. Fear convinces people to stay where they are. It tells them that the risk is too great, that the unknown is too dangerous, that failure is inevitable. But what if the greatest danger is not moving at all? What if remaining in the same place, trapped by doubt, is a greater loss than stepping forward and failing? A person who never tries will never know what could have been. A person who remains in fear may miss doors that were already opening simply because they were too afraid to walk through them. Faith does not guarantee immediate success. It does not promise that the path will be free of difficulties. Instead, it provides the strength to continue even when the outcome is uncertain. A person who walks by faith understands that failures are not final, that setbacks are not permanent, and that every challenge faced is an opportunity to grow. Faith teaches that even in the waiting, even in the unanswered questions, something is being prepared beyond what the mind can comprehend. Fear is an illusion that distorts vision. It makes mountains out of molehills and turns simple decisions into overwhelming burdens. It convinces a person to expect the worst before they have even begun. But faith sees beyond the illusion. It acknowledges the obstacles yet moves forward regardless, knowing that the outcome is not determined by fear, but by the willingness to trust in something greater. When standing before a decision, a challenge, or an uncertain future, the choice is clear: be led by fear or be moved by faith. Fear will always offer a reason to hesitate, but faith will always provide a reason to move forward. The question is not whether fear will arise, but whether it will be allowed to dictate the future. Those who walk in faith do not live without fear. They simply refuse to let it be the master of their choices.